So today I want to discuss why I believe the world will not see the end coming. And I'm going to focus primarily on the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, and the 7 plagues. And as I talked about this before, that the narrative has always been, well, the seals come first, then the trumpets, and then the plagues. And I have always questioned that because I never believed the narrative. I always disbelieved the narrative. And by the way, to you Jews out there who are listening, shalom to you. And I hope this is of benefit to you as well, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the dots to the prophets. I always go back to the prophets to find the answer, because that's where the answers are, in the prophets. Now, let's see, what should I do first? Let's see here. I want to read something concerning meteors and or the sun's meteor belt. I didn't even know about this today, till today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on that right now. Okay. This website by Greg Bryant, The Dark Ages, were they darker than we imagined? When you read through this, and I'm not going to read through the whole thing, folks, because it's way too long. You should do it yourself. This was published in the September 1999 issue of Universe. Yes, Universe magazine. Now, as he goes, as we approach the end of the second millennium, whatever that means, I guess CE, a review of ancient history is not what you would normally expect to read in the pages of Universe. Indeed, except for the reflecting on the 837 AD or CE apparition of Halley's Comet, when it should have been as bright as Venus and would have moved through 60 degrees of sky in one day as it passed just, 0.03 AU from Earth, 3 times closer than Hyakutake or Hyakutake in 1996. You may well wonder what we could learn from any astronomical events that occurred more than 1,000 years ago. Any history text will say that the Dark Ages refers to a period after the fall of the Roman Empire in the middle of the first millennium. It was not sponsored by the International Dark Sky Association. It was a time when the European civilization stagnated. Even that term is a generous description. Oh boy, is it ever. You see, you have not been told the truth about what happened during the Dark Ages, at least not the whole truth. Refers to a period after, okay, wait a minute. A generous description of the living standards and social settings of the next few centuries. In a broader sense, however, Dark Ages can be applied to a few eras of social upheaval in the last several thousand years, which fits in nicely with what you're about to read. Stay with me, as the possible astronomical implications will soon become apparent. Let's look first at the onset of the Dark Ages in the 6th century AD. And those of you who follow what happened in the 6th century, you know that the bubonic plague began around 540, I believe it was, or 540 or 560, somewhere around there. I believe it was in the Justinian Empire. Now, the Roman Empire was finished. Nothing was happening in sciences, and worse was happening in nature. The Italian historian Flavius Cassiodorus wrote about conditions that he experienced during the year AD 536. So I guess these things may have began around 540. The sun seemed to have lost its wonted light and appears of a bluish color. We marvel that we see no shadows of our bodies at noon. To feel the mighty vigor of the sun's heat wasted into feebleness, and the phenomena which accompany an eclipse prolonged through almost a whole year. We had a summer without heat. The crops have been chilled by north winds, and the rain is denied. Other writers of the time describe similar conditions. Procopius, during this year a most dread portent took place, for the sun gave forth its light without brightness, and it seemed exceedingly like the sun in eclipse, for the beams it shed were not clear. Lydius, the sun became dim for nearly a whole year, so that the fruits were killed at an unseasonable time. Michael the Syrian, the sun became dark, and the darkness lasted for 18 months. Each day it shone for about 4 hours, and still this light was only a feeble shadow. The fruits did not ripen, and the wine tasted like sour grapes. Was this a local phenomenon? According to the book Volcanoes of the World, Dr. Timothy Bratton had noted that there was a small eruption on the volcano Mount Vesuvius in AD 536. Could this be the cause? It may well have contributed to the scene, although the eruption was much smaller than the one of AD 79. You know, the one that destroyed Pompeo and Herculaneum. But it cannot really account for the similar conditions that were experienced all around the world. In China, the stars were lost from view for 3 months. Records indicate that light from the sun dimmed. The expected rains did not eventuate. Rain didn't come. Snow was seen in the middle of summer. Famine was widespread, and in the midst of turmoil, the emperor abandoned the capital. Bad luck tends to be bunched together, and thus came the bubonic plague, the Justinian plague, named after the Byzantine Empire of the time. It is reported to have begun in Central Asia, spread into Egypt, and thus made its way into Europe. By some accounts, it was as bad as the Black Death which plagued Europe in the Middle Ages. Now, he goes on to try to pattern tree rings at various times of millennia beforehand. Okay. Now, I'm not going to read through all of that, but I'll start reading here. The 12th century BC is associated with the Green Dark Ages, the end of the Hittite civilization in the Near East, and the end of the Bronze Age, Israel, and the end of the Bronze Age Shang dynasty in China. Ancient Chinese historians had the notion of the mandate from heaven, wherein the rulers were essentially subject to the whims of the sky above. Strange sights in the sky would not be seen as good news for Chinese emperors. Indeed, around this time, Chinese records speak of many gods and spirits were annihilated in this battle, and several stellar dignitaries were replaced by newcomers in the celestial domains. What could have caused such global shocks? A likely answer, which has a good fit for the evidence, was that the European and the Chinese observers described as dragons in the sky, aka comets. We're not talking about an intact large comet. If that had hit in the last several millennia, would we not be here today? But rather fragments from a disintegrating comet or asteroid, small pieces like that of which hit Tunguska in 1908. These would throw up dust that would envelope the world and dim our view of the sun in the skies. All of this sounds like an interesting theory, but is there any evidence from above that fits in with this scenario? How do we account for so many impacts over the last several millennia, when consensus today in astronomy is that impacts causing global consequences, mild as well as major, are very rare? Enter the astronomer. Okay. Let's see. Independently of Bailey's studies, British astronomers were putting together an explanation of the Taurid meteors that we see. The Taurid are related to comet Encke, which was first shown by Fred Whipple, best known for proposing the dirty snowball models of comets. Mark Bailey, Victor Klub, brother of my rugby coach at school, and Bill Napier put forward the theory that Encke and the Taurid meteors originated from a giant comet that fragmented some 40,000 years ago after entering the inner solar system. Well, of course, folks, I don't agree with the 40-something odd thousand year theory, but let's continue. The idea of a comet splitting into much smaller pieces is nothing new. Witness Shoemaker-Levy 9 in 1994, and return this year of the fragmented periodic comet MACHOLES, and indeed Dr. Brian Marsden of the Smithsonian Astrophysical Observatory is the originator of the theory that bulk of sun-grazing comets, we see come from a large comet that perhaps originally split a few centuries BCE, and has split again. This family of comets is known as the Kreutz sun grazers. In other words, these comets were spun off by the sun. The astronomers noted that Chinese records of meteor observations over the last 2,000 years reveal significant surges in the number of meteors observed every few centuries. These tend to be observed at the same time every year. We now know them as Taurids, which has a nighttime display in October, November, the Taurids south and the Taurids north. See the end of the article. And a daytime appearance in June, the Beta Taurids. Both meteor showers are linked. The Taurids south and the Taurids north are what the Earth encounters as the Taurid meteor stream heads toward perihelion, whilst the Beta Taurids are encountered as the meteor stream heads away from the perihelion. Unlike the most prominent annual meteor showers, the Taurids are not known for being spectacular because the stream is too broad. Whatever caused the Taurids must have been huge. It was suggested many years ago as a primary source for the dust in the inner solar system. It is argued that comet Encke itself is a fragment of this larger inactive comet. Such a scenario implies that there are other objects in the Taurid stream much larger than dust that are unobserved because they are inactive. Is there any evidence for large objects in the Taurids hitting Earth in recent history? Consider the following. In late June 1178, an English monk reported the observation of 5 men of what is believed to have been an impact on the moon. American astronomer geologist Jack Hartung had argued that this reported impact created the Giordano Bruno crater, known to be one of the youngest craters on the moon. The timing of this event, later June, is consistent with the Beta Taurids. In his book, Rogue Asteroids and Doomsday Comets, former AAO astronomer Duncan Steele described the fall of a meteorite on the 25th of June, 1890, near Farmington, Kansas. Besides its obvious timing with Beta Taurids, the meteorite is most notable for being the youngest meteorite known in terms of exposure to space. Dating of the meteorite has revealed it was separated from its parents less than, as they claim, 25,000 years ago. I disagree. A factor of 10 younger than the next youngest meteorite. So, what we're seeing here, folks, and I want to go straight to the lessons of Jupiter in the Southern Sky magazine, is that many of these meteorites seem to all come from the same location, from around the sun. Okay, so let's go down here to meteor streams orbit the sun like planets, but their orbits tend to be perturbed by the planets. Interesting, huh? Well, you'll find a connection in one of the plagues, the 7 last plagues. The astronomers calculated how the orbit of the Taurids have changed over the century. In Lessons from Jupiter, Southern Sky magazine, January, February 1995, Kluby and David Asher wrote, calculations based upon an orbit related to that of P/Encke reveal intersections with the Earth's orbit at around 600 AD or 600 CE, and before that of CE 400. So that a swarm would have been near the Earth's orbit for a duration of a few centuries around that epoch, the time of the European Dark Age. This was a critical extended period where we might well expect several multi-megaton explosive events, indeed a great many, a lot of them. If we consider the globe as a whole, the perspective is evidently one which we expect the Roman Empire to have gone into decline owing to multiple Tunguska bombardment, causing great tracts of land to be deserted and whole communities or nations to be suddenly dislocated. Of necessity, the period becomes one of the barbaric movements. Chinese historical records of AD 540 say dragons fought in the pond of Kouho. They went westward, and the places they passed, all the trees were broken down or smashed down. Does that sound familiar? The calculations for the Taurids suggest that we pass through the core of the meteor stream approximately every 2,500 years. Today, we are passing through the outer edges. What? The last two occasions when we passed through the core were in 2200, 2000 BCE, and in CE 400 through 600. The epoch around CE 3000 looks like being a fun time too. The Y2K doomsayers can always say they've got their millennium wrong. Well, all right, I think I've done enough talking about that. Let's go and have a look at the 7 last plagues. Remember, the Justinian plague. Let's look at the history of the plague, part 1. All right. What do we have here, folks? The plague is acute infectious disease caused by Bacillus Yersinia pestis, and is still endemic in indigenous rodent populations of South and North America, Africa, and Central Asia. In epidemics, plague is transmitted to humans by the bite of the Oriental or Indian rat flea and the human flea, and the primary hosts of the fleas are the black urban rat and the brown sewer rat. Plague is also transmitted person to person in pneumonic form. It is very pathogenic organism to both humans and animals, and before antibiotics had a very high mortality rate. Bubonic plague also has military significance and is listed by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention as a Category A bioterrorism agent 1. I did say that I was going to go to the plagues, right? Just give me 1 minute here. There has been 3 great world pandemics of plagues recorded. And guess where the first one was recorded? 581. The same time that these balls of fire came out of the sky and destroyed whole tracts of land across the world, dispossessing entire nations from their lands. The Dark Ages. Also in 1347 and in 1894. CE, each time causing devastating mortality of people and animals across nations and continents. On more than one occasion, the plague irrevocably changed the social and economic fabric of society. Now, what does it look like? In most human plague epidemics, infection initially took the form of large purulent abscesses of lymph nodes. The bubo, or the groin, the swelling in the groin, this was bubonic plague. When bacteria followed, it caused hemorrhaging and necrosis of the skin, rapidly following by a septic shock and death. Okay, so you get the drift here. Now we can go and we see that some of these plagues happen right about the same time. Let's look here. And Revelation 16, verse 1, and I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the seven angels, go your way and pour out the vials of wrath of Jehovah upon the earth. And the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous what? Sore. Well, that's described by the bubonic plague, is it not? It began around 540, 541. Did it not? Doesn't history agree? Yes, it does. This is why I'm telling you folks, do not believe the narrative concerning the 7 plagues, the 7 trumpets, and the 7 seals. This is describing the bubonic plague. Upon men which had the mark of the beast. And I've told you what the mark of the beast is. It is the Christians who carry the mark of the beast. And to a certain extent, so do the Muslims. But mainly the Christians, the Romans, the Europeans. And upon them which worshipped his image. Now, do you know who did not get the bubonic plague? The Jews did not get the bubonic plague. And when the Christians found out that the Jews were not getting the plague, they blamed the Jews and they murdered the Jews all the more. And when you read down into toward the last plagues, you will see that they did not repent of their sins, their idolatry, their sorcery, nor their murders. Who did they murder? The Jews. All right. Now the second angel poured out his vial upon the sea, and it became as blood of a dead man, and every living soul died in the sea. Well, let me ask you a question. At this particular point in time, do you think there are very many men recording history? You see, this second one could have happened in the Mediterranean Sea and not been recorded, or recordings lost. The reason why I say that is look at the fourth angel. Verse 8, and the fourth angel poured out his vial upon the, what did we just talk about? What did we just read? The sun. It has been recorded that this happened right here. That these meteors from the sun bombarded the earth with fire and completely dispossessed whole nations of their land, which means it burnt it up. To scorch men with fire, and men were scorched with great heat and blasphemed the name of Jehovah, which had the power of these plagues, and they repented not to give him glory. And what happened? Darkness. The fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, Rome, aka Europe, and his kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain and blasphemed Jehovah of heaven because of their pain and their sores, and repented not of their deeds. Now, didn't we just read there how this horrible dust and burning that these meteorites had caused the earth to grow dark, triggering the dark ages? That also happened at around the same time. Now we have the sixth angel pouring out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of what? Anatolia. Anatolia? Anatolia. Yes, folks, Anatolia. You know where Anatolia is? What we call Turkey today. When you read Ezekiel 38, Anatolia is mentioned as among, it doesn't say Anatolia, it mentions Gomer. And it mentions Togarmah, Gog Magog, which is a little bit to the north and east of Anatolia. And also Rosh, who will be the head. Rosh literally means head, Russia, of this whole operation. Might be prepared. And all this, and then I saw three unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. Well, we know the false prophet is the guy at the Vatican. These are spirits of demons working wonders, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world to gather them together to the battle of the great day of Jehovah Almighty. Look what it says. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watches and keeps his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. Now, a few things I want to show you. Okay? So we go to Revelation 7, or Revelation 6. We see in the sixth seal, and I beheld, and he had opened up the sixth seal, and lo, it was a great earthquake. The sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casts her untimely figs when she is shaken with a mighty wind. And the heaven departed as a scroll and is rolled together, and every mountain and coastland was moved out of their places. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and they said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sits on the throne. Why? Because they can see him now. He showed up. And also from the wrath of the Lamb, because he showed up too. For the great day of his wrath has come. Oh, so what we're saying is here, the sixth seal is the same as the sixth bowl of wrath. Right here. The sixth angel poured out his vial on the great river Euphrates, and you scroll down here and you see, behold, I come as a thief. Oh, wait a minute. Before that, it says, to gather them to the battle of that great day of Jehovah Almighty. It's the same time. It's the same event. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he who watches and keeps his garments. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. So we connect the sixth seal with the sixth bowl of wrath. Now let's see if we can connect the trumpet sounds. Take a look at this, folks. Immediately after, it says in Matthew 24 and verse 29, immediately after tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. In other words, we're going to have the same horrible event that happened in 540, this time with the one who sits on the throne, Jehovah Almighty, and the Lamb. Israel's Moshiach coming. Powers of heaven shall be shaken, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. The sign comes first, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. Why? They think he's the Antichrist. And then they shall see the Son of Man coming in the cloud of heaven with power and great glory, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of a what? Trumpet. Behold, I come as a thief. Sixth vial of wrath. The trumpet, he comes in the sixth trumpet, because this last trumpet is when he gathers together the elect from the four winds, from one end of the sky to the other, would be the seventh trump. So he's already here on earth when the seventh trump is blown. That by default puts his arrival at the sixth trumpet sound. So we go back to what's happened here. Okay, we go back to Revelation 6 in the sixth seal, and what do we see? Hide us from the face of him that sits on the throne. Why? Because they see him. They see the Father on his throne. He has entered into earth's atmosphere, and then here comes the Messiah. Hide us from the face. Why are they saying hide us from his face? Because they're looking at his face. Of him that sits on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. The wrath of the Lamb is not going to be afar off. It's going to be up close and personal. Sixth seal, sixth bowl of wrath, sixth trumpet. Sixth bowl of wrath, or right here is what it says. Behold, I come as a thief. When? In the sixth bowl of wrath, in the sixth seal, and in the sixth trumpet. And he gathered them to place in the Hebrew tongue, Har Megiddo. All right, where is that at? It's on the mountains of Israel in the north, at the Jezreel Valley. All right, let's go look at, look at Joel 3. This is after the restoration of Judah and Jerusalem, which has already happened. Now we're waiting for the judgment upon the nations for what they've done to all Israel, you see. And the controversies with Lebanon and the Palestinians. Right here in one sentence, folks. The controversy is over the Lebanese and the Palestinians. What are we going through right now? Yes, what have you to do with me, oh Tyre and Zidon? Go get your map and look for Tyre and Zidon, and you'll see where they're located in Lebanon. And the coast of Palestine, will you render to me a recompense? They've been trying. And if you recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head. Because you've taken my gold and my silver and carried them into your temples, my goodly things, the children of Judah and the children of Jerusalem, you sold them to the Greeks. The Hellenes, Western civilization. That you might remove them to the west, far from your border. But guess what? Fake Stinians, Lebanese. Behold, I will raise them out of the place where you have sold them and return your recompense upon your own head. In other words, these Jews that have been relocated back are going to drive you out of your lands the same way you did to them. And you Lebanese and you Palestinians, in spite of what the Donald Trump so-called peace plan of the century is trying to claim, you Palestinians and you Lebanese will be deported to where? I will sell your sons and your daughters into the hands of Judah, and they shall sell them to the Sabians, to the Africans, to a people afar off, for Jehovah has spoken it. So they will be driven down into Yemen and beyond, into Africa. Proclaim you this among the Gentiles, prepare war. Wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, and let them come up. See, folks, I have said that the current government of Israel does not have the guts to do what is written here. And we just had an election. And guess what? The same people. Who is the one that's going to cause these Zidonians and the Tyre and the Palestinians to be deported? Not the current Israeli government. The Messiah is going to do it. If nobody else is willing to do it, by default, that job is going to fall on Israel's Messiah himself. And then we see, proclaim this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears, and let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come down, all you heathen, and gather yourselves together round about there. Oh, by the way, oh Jehovah, bring your mighty ones down there too. So you see, while they're assembling to undo what Israel has just done, what the Jews have just done to the Lebanese and to the Palestinians. These nations think that they're going to right a wrong. And when they come, so shall the Messiah on his white horse calls the angels to come on their white horses and prepare to battle this army. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. Now we just read it's the valley of or Armageddon. Okay, so let's have a look at this, shall we? This is why we got to examine everything very, very carefully, folks. All right. The valley of judgment. Jehovah has judged. Okay. Now, does it actually have to be the valley of Jehoshaphat? Right here in Revelation says in Armageddon. All right, so let's do this. All right, Armageddon. Okay. Great shall be the day of Jezreel. Let's look this up real quick. All right, check this out. Hosea 1, verse 11. The people, the children of Israel, the children of Judah, and the children of Israel will be gathered together. What? And appoint themselves one head. That's the Messiah. For they will go up from the land, for great will be the day of Jezreel. Folks, this is right here. The Messiah has come. Jehovah has come. All of the children of Judah and the children of Israel will be gathered together, as it is written here in Matthew. All right. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect. Israel is the elect, as per Isaiah 45, and I believe it's verse 4. And also, Paul said it in Romans 11, verses 25 through 27. He said to the Romans, they might be your enemies for the gospel's sake, but they are the elect for the patriarch's sake. That's Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's sake. They are the elect. So when he says he's going to gather together his elect from the four winds, from the one end of the other, from one end of heaven to the other, he's talking about gathering Israel. Why? Because Israel's tribulation is going to be over. Finished. Done with. So we go back to, where was I? Hosea. They're going to appoint themselves the Lamb as their head, and they're going to come out of the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel. So we have the prophet Hosea agreeing with Revelation 16, verse 16. Why? Because Armageddon stares at down the valley of Jezreel. So what's the score on what did I just do? Get rid of Joel? Okay. What is the story on Joel? Okay. It should properly read the valley of judgment. It's that Jehovah has judged, and he's going to judge actually in the valley of Jezreel. You see. The valley of Jezreel will be the valley of judgment. I hope you understand the meanings here. Jehoshaphat means Jehovah has judged. Jezreel, the valley of Jezreel, is the place where Jehovah will judge. Just that simple. In the valley of Jezreel. Now the question is, now here's the $64,000 question. This is going to get you to start questioning the narrative that you've always heard. Does Messiah come after the nations start invading, or before, or at the same time? Well, if you read Hosea, okay, so then shall the children of Israel and the children of Judah be gathered together. What? That's the elect. That's the elect. Well, guess what? What we have here in Revelation 16, verse 16, it says that the three unclean spirits that come out of the beast, out of the mouth of the beast, the mouth of the false prophet, and the mouth of the dragon, are going to be gathering all these men, all these military men, to the battle of that great day of Jehovah Almighty. And he says, behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watches, keep his garments, lest he walk naked and see his shame. And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. And that is the end of the sixth bowl of wrath. What happens next? The seventh one. Has the battle started yet? Nope. When does the battle start? During the seventh trump. You see, in the beginning of the seventh trump, that is when all Israel is going to be gathered to their Messiah in Israel. They're going to be gathered from all four corners of the earth. And they're going to appoint him as one head. There are people among the Jews, many, who are waiting and waiting and waiting for Mashiach. I apologize for my poor Hebrew skills. There are some others who are also waiting for Israel's Messiah. But then there are others, the vast majority of Christianity has concluded that Israel's Messiah is their Antichrist. And that's the reason why they will fight against him. So, going back to Joel 3, I again ask the question, is there any administration in Israel and is willing to sell the people of Lebanon and the Palestinians into slavery? No. You know it as well as I do. Who's going to do it? Messiah. He's going to do it. And that is going to draw the ire of the nations like you wouldn't believe. How dare this new leader of Israel do this? That is the reason, folks, that the angels, or that the Gentiles are going to be gathered against him. This is probably the closest I have come to the truth concerning this so far. Please believe, folks, I understand now. I'm convinced that the trumpets, sounds, the plagues, and the seals happen at the same time. I was able to prove that to you today with hardly a shadow of a doubt, using, of course, the prophets. Because before you start getting in your head this idea that the prophets don't matter, here's a warning for you in Revelation 10 verse 7. See. All right, check this out. But in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, we know what happens when the seventh angel sounds. That's when all Israel, all the elect are gathered together. Right? Right. When it begins to sound, the mystery of Jehovah should be completed, not finished. As I'll show you in just a second. Just like he declared to his servants, though, what? The prophets. Joel, anyone? Hosea, anyone? Isaiah, anyone? Ezekiel, anyone? Finished. The word finished in Greek. To accomplish, and with the results of rolling over to the next phase of consummation, folks. What does this mean? Matthew 24. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, what happens next? Another tribulation. You see, this tribulation is a tribulation upon Israel. The next tribulation is a tribulation upon the Gentiles. And that is the reason why it is written right here in Revelation. Oh, did I lose it already? No. Okay. Well, I'll go back to right here. That's the reason why we read right here. Now I forgot what I was talking about. Oh, wait a minute. That's not what I was looking for. Right here in Matthew 24, where it says right here, then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. Then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. All the tribes besides it, except for Israel. That's because it's their tribulation now. It's the Gentiles' tribulation now. And I've gone over already. I believe it was in Romans 10. Tribulation and anguish to all who do evil, to the Jew first and then to the Hellene. Well, the Jews got theirs first. That was right here, this section, immediately after tribulation of those days. And the rest of the nations get theirs next, because they're going to be mourning. They're mourning because their good times at the expense of Israel are over, finished, kaput. Now, just so to keep you from grabbing to the last string of deception, I will use you Christians, your own scripture. I will use your own scripture. Jews, please do not turn away when I read this, because this is going to validate you. Paul is going to validate you, me, Jews. Let me show you. Romans 11. Well, right here in verse 1. Has Jehovah cast away his people? Jehovah forbid. What do the Romans say? The Romans say that he has. Paul says no. Okay. Let's go down here. Verse 25. For I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits. Who is he talking to? The Romans. That blindness, partial blindness, happened to Israel until, and this is an incorrect rendering here, folks. It's until the time of the Gentiles come to an end. And so all Israel shall be saved. What part of this do you not understand, Christian? How about you Jews? Do you believe that? It's time to believe. All Israel shall be saved. In what way? Well, when you go and read Hosea 1 and verse 11, you will see. Then shall the children of Judah and the children of Israel be gathered together. They are the elect. All right, let's go to, I am not going to allow any grain of leavening agent of lies be able to penetrate what I'm talking about today. So all Israel shall be saved, yes, because they're all going to be gathered together, Judah and Israel. As it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer. Okay, looky here, folks, check this out. And they will appoint themselves one leader. All right, let's go back to Romans again. And he will turn away unholiness from Jacob. For this is my covenant unto them, as written in Jeremiah 31, verses 31 through 34. If you care to look, the new covenant. That's right. There is going to be a new covenant for the house of Israel and the house of Judah. Also backed up by the words of Paul in Hebrews 8, verses 8 through 12. When I shall take away their sins. So what is the new covenant? When he takes away Israel's sins. That's right. When he removes them, gets rid of them. Concerning the gospel, they are enemies for you Romans' sakes, but concerning the election, they are the beloved elect. For the patriarch's sake, because the gifts and calling of Jehovah can never be changed, cannot be repented of. And so you see, you Romans received mercy so that Israel might also receive mercy, because everyone has been deemed unrighteous and unbelievers, so that he might have mercy upon all. And that is the reason why Israel is going to be brought back, because he had mercy on you Romans, he had mercy upon you Hellenes. Now he's going to have mercy upon Israel, and then he's going to show no mercy upon all of those nations who showed no mercy on Israel. How do I know that? James 2, verse 13. Because judgment will be merciless to the one who has shown no mercy. So, Roman Europe, Roman Christians today, prepare. Because you, your nations, your forefathers have been unmerciful to the Jews.